adjusting their time. The City of New Haven, the Public Safety Committee of the New Haven Board of Orders will meet in person at 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, February 15th, 2024, in the Board of Alder Chambers located at 165 Church Street, New Haven, second floor, and act upon the following. Order of New Haven, authorizing the city of the City of New Haven, Mayor, Controller, or Budget Director to enter into a 3-year agreement with National Institution for Criminal Justice Reform, the amount of $85,000 under the city federal grant award from the Office of Justice Programs to advise virtuous aspects of violence prevention, au- violence prevention, authorizing in the city. Order of the City of New Haven Board of Orders authorizing the City of New Haven Mayor, Controller or Director to enter into an agreement with Connecticut Violence Intervention Programs in the amount of $397,975.71. Project More in the amount of $250,901.74. 64 cents. Project Longevity in the amount of 292,041.86. University of New Haven in the amount of $108,080.86 and four in the amount of $485,946 to implement activate funds under the federal grant awards from the Office of Justice Program. These items are found and available for public inspection in the Office of Legislative Services, 165 Church Street, New Haven, CT per Honorable Brian Wingate, Chair, Honorable Michael Smart, City Clerk. If you need any accessibility related accommodations, please contact 203-946-7651, voice or 203-946-8582. In accordance with the City of New Haven COVID-19 policy, masks are now optional. Public may send comments to public testimony, CT, New Haven, CT.gov. Thank you for coming to the meeting. Thank you for adjusting your schedules uh, to 6:30 instead of 6 o'clock. And at this time, I ask the committee to introduce themselves, sign for my right.
Brittany Black, Alder of Ward 20.
Caroline Tomby Smith, Alder of Ward 5.
Frank Douglas, Ward 2.
Chair, Ward 29.
Vice Chair, Ward 30.
At this time, I will ask the makers of this item to please come and testify on this item. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Dejan Talley, 55 East Coast Street, New Haven.
Good evening, Carlos Sosa Lombardo, 54 Cooper Place, New Haven, Connecticut.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, others. We're here tonight to present authorization to get authorization from board partners for grants that we have previously applied. We were here almost a year ago to get authorization from the board partners to apply, a grant from the federal government. We were awarded this grant. We were awarded this grant around October of last year, and now we are working on executing the contracts to implement the grant. So we appreciate your support. I was working through the first process of getting the grant application in and accepting the funding from the federal government. We want to move on to implementation phase, some contracts. Engineer Tally here is going to give us a refresher on what was presented to the board of alders, and then go into details about the contract. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carlos and Alders. So just as a refresher on the CREST program for reintegration, engagement, safety, and support, is designed to support citizens who have gun charges or gang-related charges or are not supposed to be gun or gang involved, to support them in their path to assistance. And we do that by welcoming them home to table service providers who say they want to stay out of jail. We engage them with case managers, and we provide them with wraparound support for them if they need us to hit major benchmarks, including housing, positive pro-social support, improving relationships with their families, and things like that. And so if you remember from last year, I understand that there are corners at the table, so I want to be as descriptive as possible. Last year, we reported some metrics. If you remember last year when we presented over, you can see on slide 2, there were 101 clients at the time, and we had a recidivism rate of about 13% at that time. I'm happy to report today that in the most recent numbers I've been able to bring up, we actually have around 180 clients who have come through CREST, and the recidivism rate remains around 12 to 13%. And so what we found is that with the proper supports, with intensive care and attention to folks that they can and do better, what we want to do through the grant is to enhance and expand our operations. We started with a handful of clients, maybe a couple dozen. At 180, we just need to add capacity. And so with this grant, we would allow to add manpower to the organizations we already work with at the table, including CTVIP, Project More, and Project 150, to do 3 major things, which are listed on slide 4. Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. Slide 4. So in terms of the contracts that we're talking about, one would be to enhance our data capacity, and that's to, I was able to report some numbers to you, but we want to be able to drill down and get more specific about what's actually improving, better track their housing, better track their mental health, better track all of the programming that we're throwing at them and how they're doing over time. The University of New Haven is going to help us build our data capacity within each one of the organizations, better quality data, gives us better information about how well we're doing, where we need to improve. For the other 3 contracts, those are programmatic. We're going to add 2 life coaches to CTVIP. So they'll have 2 BPPs, violence prevention professionals, that will be dedicated to the CREST project. And that is intended to support case managers, parole, and probation officers who cannot be responsible for their clients at all times of the day when crises arise. They'll have a circle of defense to support them. If something comes up today, they're frustrated, something fell through, and they're feeling discouraged, they have in the line of defense to contact without overwhelming the probation officers or their case managers. In addition to that, Project Longevity is actually going to add a case manager to support the women, the co-parents, and the partners of the men in the program and their kids. And the reason for this is, you already mentioned the recidivism rate. you'd be surprised, these are not for, a lot of these are not for guns. A lot of them are for domestic violence situations. And so what we think is important is to support healthy relationships with folks that are returning home with the sorts of recidivism. So in addition to supporting them in distant crime, bad behavior related to guns and gangs, we also want to make sure they're having healthy relationships at home. And it's one long-term prevention too for kids who are exposed to that and their own prevention, right? And the third part is a resource specialist, someone who's going to help them navigate the workforce, get them connected to workforce development programs, build relationships with employers who are going to be willing to hire guys, as long as they get the training to really build that sort of pipeline for folks who are coming out into employment.
As we pause, I want to let the Alder from the Corners first announce himself. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I pause and ask a question?
Mhm.
Is it okay that I combine the two orders?
No.
No, it's not. And one of the last contracts is for 4CT to administer essential needs funds and workforce development funds. That way, they're the pass through for folks who need like emergency housing if they have to take care of a hotel because they're in unstable circumstances, if they need daycare to get to workforce training, any barriers that might come up that block their ability to participate in pro-social activities. We have a fund that can facilitate getting them over those barriers they need to get to. And so for the grant, again, we have 38 letters of support from folks all over the state and all over the city who believe in this initiative, who help us with this initiative. $2 million over the next 3 years. And the figures I should at the start of this is how we want to disperse it to get these programs to promote their sustainability, but also to make them better.
Thank you so much. I wanted to slow it down a little bit for the new orders. Instead of putting them all together, I wanted to separate them so if they have any questions around the first particular items and the money, I will give them an opportunity. Like,
Sir, I do want to clarify something for the elders. I was just looking at the order, at the agenda item, and what we are speaking about right now is the second item. That's
yeah, we good.
us.
My bad.
No, it's okay.
It's a lot.
Okay.
And that comes to the end of our presentation for that specific agenda.
So I'm going to open it up to questions. For whom may I have a question? Starting from my right, Alder Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just out of the blue, so funding, the funds that you're going after, I just need to know, is there a conflict of interest? I noticed that two of these entities receive community block grants. Is there a conflict, would there be a conflict of interest in receiving this funding?
No.
No, it has nothing to do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have.
Co-chair.
You know anything about that? Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question to you is, how are you going out to advertise this for employment?
And for
For the life coaching or any of the jobs where you said you're gonna hire 2 new people? How are you putting that out?
So we have left that up to the organizations to recruit on their own. And we don't want to sort of regulate who they would hire. So we just leave it up to them to recruit. If they want assistance, obviously, we'll be there to be helpful. And if you have recommendations, we'll pass them on. But other than that, we'll leave it up to them.
Thank you. So,
Alder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you both for the presentation. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the working group and just generally how these 4 organizations or 5 organizations, among potentially others, are working together towards this shared goal.
That's a great question. Thank you, Alder. So I want to preface this by saying that the Office of the City's Office of Acquisition plans to implement its own sort of working group to steer the strategic direction of the office already. It just so happened that the grant also required a working group to sort of not just focus on the programmatic expansion of what we're doing here in the city, but also to make sure that it's aligned with community stakeholders and make sure that folks were included. So our plans for the working group at the moment, we had an application process recently for community members to sign up and apply to be on the working group. So there's 15 community members who will be, and that will probably change over time because those attrition, people come and go. But there will always be community representation on the working group. It'll also include the partners who are on the ground, so the organizations are named, in addition to the Department of Corrections, Probation, the Yale's Hospital Police Violence Prevention Program. Anyone who's really touching this work at the center or the periphery will be involved in sort of reviewing data, seeing where gaps are happening, seeing where folks are not coordinating and connecting, and to provide feedback to the city on an ongoing basis at what we're doing well, but also give us advice and work with us on what we're not doing well. So it's intended to be a really collaborative group, not to just talk and wax poetic about the issue, but really put people to work, especially in the neighborhoods, to really serve as a liaison to say there are services available for your loved ones, there are resources available for your loved ones, there are places and everything. And so that's what we're hoping the working group will be and will do.
Any questions on this particular item? Is oh, all
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I really don't have a question. Every time she comes forward, she seems to be well informed in what she's talking about, and I like how it just flows out of her. I want to thank you for that.
we're gonna hold that for discussion. We're gonna hold that for discussion. She still hasn't done this meeting tonight. Okay. Alder Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you tell me why these particular organizations were chosen?
Yes, so we did have an RFP process. When we found out we got the grant, we'll call for proposals out to organizations to do this work. I will be honest and say that because these folks were already involved in press, they're very familiar with what the needs are, that they sort of had an upper hand. But these are trusted community partners who already know these groups, these folks, their families. So the proposals spoke for themselves and they were trusted to do
In my opinion, excellent choice.
Thank you.
And just to add to what Janai said, before we even applied for this grant, we went through a community input process to build the blueprint for the Office of Violence Prevention. We used that blueprint and leverage it to apply for this grant, to be able to implement key components of the blueprint, which includes the working group, includes the enhancements that were doing with partners. So with that in mind, we know these partners have been doing this work for a long time, before we even had this whole infrastructure here in the city. So we want to support them the best we can to enhance capacity and be able to maximize their impact. And just wanted to add that. Thank you.
I want to take it back from my colleague, the colleague. Is there any way that we can get the names of the folks that are in that working group?
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to share with them. We're actually going to invite them and ask them soon. They've been notified.
Okay.
But yes, I'm happy to share the list.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Just send that to the legislative aide, Jessica. We all set this before? We can move on to the next.
Thank you. We touch now the contract for technical assistance with the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform. And we have gone through a procurement process of sole sourcing this organization. They are a unique organization providing technical assistance to offices of violence prevention across the nation. They also manage a network of offices of violence prevention and work very closely with the newly established Office of Violence Prevention. These are trusted professionals that will be providing technical assistance, and Janai will walk us through a little bit more what that looks like.
So perfect. I think it's really is important to highlight that again, they have worked with offices of violence prevention nationwide of all sizes, ranging from very large to ones that are very small, like in our municipality. And they've had a lot of experience in sort of seeing what the ebbs and flows are, what other OVPs, what challenges they face, and so they're prepared to sort of review what we have going on in the ground, come here, get to know the community, get to know the work that our organizations are doing on the ground, both through the grant, but also the work that's already been done for decades here, and advise us on sort of next steps. How do we collect the data? What are the cutting edge techniques, evidence-based practices that are emerging that we might not hear about here in New Haven, but they can connect us to. And so really it's around, they're gonna support some of the things that I've already said. They're gonna provide the life coaching training to CTVIP. That's something that CTVIP doesn't do now. They are credible messengers, but they haven't had this specific life coach training, and they're gonna do that. They're gonna advise us on how to use our data platform, procured Apricot as a way to share data across organizations and how to best track outcomes for our clients. They're going to advise on how that process rolls out, how we use that platform. If there's data that's missing that we're not collecting, to advise us on what we should be collecting. And honestly, a number of other things that might come up. One thing that Shantae did say to me when we spoke recently was like, I'll give you some advice. You might say no to this, but maybe 6 months from now, you realize that that's actually the case. And it's really going to be an iterative process to help guide our very young office with a very, very, very complex system of work and services. And so we think that leading on a national expert who's seen this in other types of cities is going to be really critical for us as we think about strategic direction and sustainability.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions? Hold it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation of this agenda item. One question I have is, what are some comparable cities that this institute has worked with, and any results that you can speak to of their work in these cities?
We worked in a number of cities. I will say last year, Hartford was this exact what we're speaking about today, and the organization was brought to help advise Hartford Strategic Plan for Violence Prevention. They worked in Baltimore. They just released a report in Baltimore on violence reduction. They worked in Philadelphia. They saw a 38% reduction in shootings. And so they're seeing results in cities like Oakland and across the way. Hartford is probably the most comparable city. I'm not sure if they've released any results yet because they just got on the ground last year. But they are familiar that every city is not cookie cutter the same, but can bring those lessons to a smaller municipality. And so, yeah, I would say Hartford's the closest.
Thank you, Mr.
Are there any money matching for us with these things? Thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question about the $85,000 across the years, and what's the staffing capacity on their end to be able to support that? How will that be structured for the next 3 years?
So we're actually working on a scope of work with them right now. I will say, and I think it's important to add, that there is some in-kind benefit that comes with just being a part of the national network. So they provide general technical assistance that just is a part of their, without us paying. And then there's specialized technical assistance that they're crafting and specialized work for us right now. And I'd be happy to share that. But we'll just kind of went through their review yesterday to talk about what it's going to look like. So I'll come back with something more concrete. And they'll change sort of the yearly allocation based on what the scope of work is across those 3 years. But the 85 will stay the same as the total.
That's helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Well, if there are no more questions, I want to thank you for your presentation. Thank you for, as all the first speaker have said, you always came here along with your colleague with detailed information. Thank you for, doing what you do and always trying to find money to do it for all. For some of y'all that don't know, this is her last meeting with the Board of Aldermen. She's going on to a new endeavor in her life, but she still will be home. She liked the pizza here, she liked the sofa here. So I just want to say thank you for the work that you've done. Right? Thank you. We'll be seeing you.
Thank you, others. I really appreciate your support. Every time you come here, you receive us with welcome arms. At the same time, you ask tough questions as a good stewards of the city, and we really appreciate your support.
Yeah, thank you. So I was gonna be nice to you, nice guy.
I appreciate it.
So for you all this, as we go through this journey, we're gonna teach a little bit. So at this time, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to these items? Are there anyone from the public would like to speak on these items? Going once. If anyone from the public would like to speak to these items? Going twice. The third time, are there anyone from the public that to speak on these items?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to the public portion of the segment.
Discussion on closing the public portion. Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Extension? The public portion has been closed. Now, we will take a motion for the item.
Mr. Chair, I make that we move the items LN 2023-0654 and also for LN 2023-0655.
Is there a second to her motion?
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Chair,
If I may, considering this is, time constraints around this, if this will be moved in favor, I will have to put this to UC, because of the time constraints around this federal grant. So I'll put that on record. And I would like to acknowledge our majority leader, Alderman Richard Furlong in the house. Okay, move on. Okay, so let me take a step back. So I will take a motion on moving these items as a UC.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we move these two items
Second.
on UC.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? We remove these items as a UC, and now I will open it for discussion.
Mr. Chair, these are two great, proposals that came, grants in which that they have, presented to us, and, I'm in favor of both of these grants in which that they have presented.
Thank you. This is open discussion at this point. This is when the time to give your opinion around the items that you just heard, right? Whether it's a comment or if there's a question, right? So, because sometimes when you, in discussion, the presenters can't come back, right? So sometimes when we talk about the legislative, right? 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 Like if you have a request, you want to know names, you want to get answers, this is the time to have that. But if you have a discussion, that's okay too.
I think it's a good idea, that they're not trying to use the grant money to reinvent the wheel, but they're actually giving it to organizations that are already in motion, that already have like the manpower, the employees, the training to be able to continue, progressing, so.
So all, Brittany, you raise your hand.
Oh,
and say,
sorry.
I would like to speak. Right,
So do I have to repeat everything?
yes, you can.
Oh,
No, I'm just. Not tonight, not tonight. I'm in a good mood tonight. In a good mood.
oh.
Discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with my colleagues. I'm also in favor of this. I appreciate what you brought up about who's in the loop or receiving who's on the work, as well as receiving the first item once that's completed. But I'm excited for these to move forward and for this federal funding to be invested.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Once again, I think that these items are essential to our community. We need this federal grant. We need the oversight, the passion around these things, right? People have issues, and we need to move back. I'm in favor of this item. That is in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Extension? The item moves to the full board. And at this time, the best motion everyone likes, I will take.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
A second.
All is in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There's never no discussion about stopping me, so I skip that. But thank y'all for coming, and thank y'all for coming late. Thank you so much. Good job.